Hey y'all, welcome as we continue in chapter 27 of the book of First Chronicles. For Solomon to build the temple of worship for the Lord, Israel had to remain a strong, united nation at peace with their neighbors. Solomon wasn't a military warrior genius like his father David. It was necessary to organize the army, the tribal leaders, and the managers and counselors who served the king personally. And this chapter leads us into that. We'll go ahead and start in verse 1 of chapter 27. This is the list of Israelite generals and captains and their officers who served the king by supervising the army divisions that were on duty each month of every year. Each division served for 1 month and had 24,000 troops. Joshibeam, son of Zabdiel, was commander of the first division of 24,000 troops, which was on duty during the first month. He was a descendant of Perez and was in charge of all the army officers for the first month. Dodai, a descendant of Ahoah, was commander of the second division of 24,000 troops, which was on duty during the second month. Mikloth was his chief officer. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, the priest, was commander of the third division of 24,000 troops, which was on duty during the third month. This was the Benaiah who commanded David's elite military group known as the 30. His son Ammizabad was his chief officer. Asahel, the brother of Joab, was commander of the fourth division of 24,000 troops, which was on duty during the fourth month. Asahel was succeeded by his son Zebediah. Shema the Israelite was commander of the fifth division of 24,000 troops, which was on duty during the fifth month. Ira, son of Akesh from Tekoa, was commander of the sixth division of 24,000 troops, which was on duty during the sixth month. Helez, a descendant of Ephraim from Palan, was commander of the seventh division of 24,000 troops, which was on duty during the seventh month. Sibbecai, a descendant of Zerah from Husha, was commander of the eighth division of 24,000 troops, which was on duty during the eighth month. Ebiazar from Anathoth in the territory of Benjamin was commander of the ninth division of 24,000 troops, which was on duty during the ninth month. Maharai, a descendant of Zerah from Netopha, was commander of the 10th division of 24,000 troops, which was on duty during the 10th month. Benaiah from Pirathon in Ephraim was commander of the 11th division of 24,000 troops, which was on duty during, you guessed it, the 11th month. Heled, a descendant of Othniel from Netopha, was commander of the 12th division of 24,000 troops, which was on duty during the 12th month. David's army was not an excessively large army. It was made up of 12 divisions of 24,000 each, and each division served 1 month out of the year, totaling 288,000 men. However, if there was a military emergency that rose up, the entire army could be called into action at any moment in any given time. We'll continue in verse 16 together. The following were the tribes of Israel and their leaders: Reuben, Eleazar, son of Zikri; Simeon, Shephatiah, son of Maacah; Levi, Hashabiah, son of Kemuel; Aaron the priest, Zadok; Judah, Elihu, a brother of David; Issachar, Omri, son of Michael; Zebulun, Ishmaiah, son of Obadiah; Naphtali, Jeremoth, son of Azriel; Ephraim, Hoshea, son of Azaziah; Manasseh west, Joel, son of Padiah; and Manasseh in Gilead east, Edo, son of Zechariah; Benjamin, Jaasiel, son of Abner; and Dan, Azarel, son of Jeroham. These were the leaders of the tribes of Israel. When David took his census, he did not count those who were younger than 20 years of age, because the Lord had promised to make the Israelites as numerous as the stars in heaven. Joab, son of Zeruiah, began the census but never finished it, because the anger of God fell on Israel. The total number was never recorded in King David's official records. Asmapheth, son of Adiel, was in charge of the palace treasuries. Jonathan, son of Uzziah, was in charge of the regional treasuries throughout the towns, villages, and fortresses of Israel. Izri, son of Caleb, was in charge of the field workers who farmed the king's lands. Shimei from Ramah was in charge of the king's vineyards. Zabdi from Shepham was responsible for the grapes and the supplies of wine. Baal-Hanan from Gerar was in charge of the king's olive groves and sycamore fig trees in the foothills of Judah. Joash was responsible for the supplies of olive oil. Shitrai from Sharon was in charge of the cattle on the Sharon plain. Shaphat, son of Aldi, was responsible for the cattle in the valleys. Obil the Ishmaelite was in charge of the camels. Jediah from Maranath was in charge of the donkeys. Jaziz from Hagrait was in charge of the king's flocks of sheep and goats. All these officials were overseers of King David's property. Jonathan, David's uncle, was a wise counselor to the king, a man of great insight and a scribe. Jehiel the Hachmonite was responsible for teaching the king's sons. Ahithophel was the royal advisor. Hushai the Archite was the king's friend. Ahithophel was succeeded by Jehoiada, son of Benaiah, and by Abiathar. Joab was the commander of the king's army. Each of the 12 tribes had an official designated leader, and the tribes were each broken down into smaller units of tens, 50s, hundreds, and thousands. Each smaller unit was also assigned a leader. The king could call upon each of the 12 tribes' leaders at any moment and know that the ears of all the people within the nation would be reached through this communication process that they established. The recollection of each of the tribes and their leaders brought to mind the ill-fated, sinful census of David. Because Joab did not finish the census, the total numbers of the pride-filled census were actually never officially recorded. The Lord stopped the process and humbled David. David, again, of course, repented in surrender before the Lord quickly. David owned royal farms, orchards, vineyards, flocks, and herds, and from these he was able to meet the needs of the palace servers. David had storehouses for his produce, and since David's tastes weren't as expensive as Solomon's would be, what David received from the Lord actually did stretch further. Every leader needs an inner circle of counselors and advisors to help examine decisions and motives and keep us in line with the Lord's will, and to help us stay laser focused on the mind of the Lord. Jonathan, David's uncle, is given honorable recognition. Ahithophel was one of David's trusted friends and a very wise advisor. However, he ended up siding with Absalom during his rebellion against David. Hushai was the man sent to confuse the counsel of Absalom, and his counsel was accepted by Absalom, and it led to the downfall of his rebellion. Jehoiada replaced Ahithophel in David's circle of wise counselors. Abiathar the priest was one of David's most trusted helpers. Joab was David's army commander. He was a military and nation-focused man, but he didn't always have David's best interest at heart. David needed his army leader within his inner circle so that he would always know what his army leader was thinking and doing. David used wisdom and the lead of the Lord to determine who would be allowed within his inner circle. He didn't do life alone, and he did not try to face battles on his own. We are created for community. We are not meant to do life alone or try to face the battles of life alone. We need to pray for our people and allow people into our lives, allow people who are desperate for Jesus and passionate for him into our inner circles of life. We need to be real with the inner circle the Lord leads us to and do life together. We need to help and encourage each other in faith and receive help from each other when needed as well. We need to let the Lord lead and guide our steps as we walk forth in faith, trusting in the Lord with each and every step, arm in arm together. It's like those shield of faith. The faith shield that God mentions in the Bible, it's not a single shield that's built to be alone. The shields that they used in this time and culture were actually bent so that they could link together and hold together tightly, creating a big wall of armor against the enemy. And we need to link together. We need to trust each other. We need to let people in who the Lord leads into our lives, people who are on fire for Jesus. The people in our inner circles of life have got to be on fire for Jesus, desperate for Jesus, passionate for Jesus, and living life in surrender and pursuit of Jesus. If they are, you can totally let them in, and you should let them into your inner circle of life and do life together. Grow together in faith, grow together in relationship, grow together pursuing the Lord Jesus, arm in arm, linked together, defeating the enemy and creating that barrier wall that he absolutely cannot penetrate. Thanks, y'all. I hope you're having a glorious day in the Lord.